McLaren has been exposed as an ongoing legal drama is escalating. FIA is in trouble after false accusations, and F1 adds more gimmicks to this race weekend. What happens when a lawsuit reveals shocking allegations that could turn Formula One upside down? Buckle up, because the McLaren versus Alex Palou legal battle just dropped a bombshell that has Zak Brown absolutely furious. Picture this scenario. You're one of the most successful team bosses in motorsport. You've just secured back-to-back Constructors' Championships, and suddenly someone claims you had zero input on signing one of your star drivers. That's exactly what happened to McLaren CEO Zak Brown, and his response is nothing short of explosive. The drama started when four-time IndyCar champion Alex Palou made a stunning allegation during his ongoing legal battle with McLaren. Palou claims that Brown told him it wasn't his decision to sign Oscar Piastri for the 2023 Formula One season. According to Palou's testimony, Brown allegedly said that former team principal Andreas Seidel was the mastermind behind bringing the Australian driver to McLaren. But wait, there's more. Palou didn't stop there. He went on to claim that Brown promised him Piastri's performances would be measured against his own throughout 2023, with the final driver lineup for 2024 hanging in the balance. Essentially, Palou is suggesting he was promised a potential Formula One seat that never materialized. Brown's reaction to these allegations? He's calling them absolutely ridiculous. Speaking to Reuters ahead of the United States Grand Prix, the American executive couldn't contain his disbelief. He questioned which allegation amused him more, the suggestion that he wouldn't be the one making crucial driver decisions, or the idea that he opposed signing the incredibly talented Oscar Piastri. The backstory here is crucial to understanding why this matters so much. McLaren is currently seeking over $20 million in damages from Palou after he performed what they're calling a spectacular U-turn in 2023. Palou had originally agreed to join McLaren's IndyCar team with the possibility of a future Formula One opportunity, but then decided to stay with Chip Ganassi Racing instead. While Palou admits he breached his contract, he argues he owes McLaren absolutely nothing. This legal battle has now escalated into something far more dramatic than a simple contract dispute. The timing of these allegations couldn't be more interesting. Oscar Piastri has become one of Formula One's brightest stars since joining McLaren. He's claimed 9 victories and currently holds a 22-point lead over his teammate Lando Norris in the championship standings. For someone to suggest that Brown wasn't fully behind signing such a successful driver seems almost absurd in hindsight. Andreas Seidel, the former team principal mentioned in Palou's claims, spent nearly 3 years at McLaren before moving to Sauber ahead of Audi's Formula One entry in 2026. He previously worked with Piastri's manager Mark Webber at Porsche's World Endurance Championship team, which adds another layer to this complex story. Brown has categorically denied ever telling Palou he would be under consideration for a 2023 Formula One seat. Instead, he maintains that he only offered the IndyCar champion some flexibility regarding potential future opportunities in Formula One. The difference in these interpretations is massive and could be worth millions of dollars. What makes this situation even more intriguing is Brown's revelation that he recently met with Piastri, who apparently found the allegations quite amusing. The idea that the McLaren CEO had little influence over signing him seems to have struck the young Australian as particularly funny. Reports suggest that Brown actually had dinner with Piastri and Mark Webber at his home around the time of the 2022 British Grand Prix, when discussions about potentially replacing Daniel Ricciardo were intensifying. This private meeting contradicts any suggestion that Brown wasn't deeply involved in the driver selection process. The broader implications of this legal battle extend far beyond just money. It's about reputation, credibility, and the inner workings of how Formula One teams make their most important decisions. For a CEO like Brown, who has transformed McLaren into a championship-winning organization, suggestions that he wasn't calling the shots on driver signings could be particularly damaging. Brown's confidence in his driver pairing is evident in his recent statements. He describes Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris as the absolute best driver combination on the Formula One grid, praising both their incredible performance and exemplary sportsmanship. With McLaren having secured their second consecutive constructors' title at the Singapore Grand Prix, it's hard to argue with the results. The legal proceedings between Mclaren and Palou are expected to continue until November, meaning we'll likely see more revelations and counterclaims before this saga reaches its conclusion. For now, Brown remains defiant, dismissing the allegations as clearly ridiculous and suggesting that anyone who follows the sport will see right through them. As this courtroom drama unfolds, one thing is certain. The world of Formula One never fails to deliver unexpected twists that keep fans on the edge of their seats, both on and off the track. What if I told you that one conversation could completely change the power balance in Formula One for the next decade? Carlos Sainz just dropped some massive hints about why he chose Williams over other teams, and it all comes down to one thing that has nothing to do with their current performance on track. Here's the thing that caught my attention. When Sainz was asked about his move to Williams, he didn't talk about their facilities, their history, or even their recent improvements. Instead, he said something that should have every Formula One fan paying attention. He revealed that Mercedes' power was actually the main reason he decided to join Williams for the upcoming regulation changes in 2026. Now, before you think this is just another driver making excuses for joining a slower team, let me explain why this is absolutely huge. We're not just talking about any regular season here. Formula One is about to undergo its biggest transformation since the hybrid era began back in 2014. And if you remember what happened when those regulations came into effect, you'll understand why Sainz's decision might be pure genius. The 2026 regulations are going to flip everything on its head. Cars will be 30 kilograms lighter, which might not sound like much, but in Formula One terms, that's massive. They're introducing active aerodynamics on both front and rear wings, which means the DRS system we've known for years is getting thrown out the window. The tires are getting narrower, and here's the big one that everyone's talking about. The electrical power output is jumping from 120 kilowatts all the way up to 350 kilowatts. That's nearly 3 times more electrical power. To put that in perspective, the hybrid system will become even more crucial than it is today. And guess who absolutely dominated when hybrid technology first arrived in Formula One? Mercedes. They didn't just win a few races. They went on an unprecedented run of 8 consecutive constructors' races championships. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sainz isn't just hoping Mercedes will be good again. He's actually hearing things from inside the paddock that are making him confident about this decision. When he spoke to Spanish media, he didn't just say he has confidence in Mercedes, has bien. He said everything he's heard about their 2026 engine has been positive, and still is. Think about what that means. Carlos Sainz has been in Formula One long enough to know when people are just being polite and when they're genuinely excited about something. He's raced for Mclaren, he's been at Ferrari, and he's worked with some of the best engineers in the sport. When a driver of his caliber says he's hearing positive things, that usually means something significant is happening behind the scenes. James Vowles, the Williams team principal, is adding even more fuel to this fire. Now, Vowles isn't just any team boss making bold predictions. This guy worked at Mercedes for over 20 years and was their chief strategist during their most successful period. He was there for all 8 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' titles between 2014 and 2021. So when he talks about Mercedes engines, he knows what he's talking about. When asked about his confidence in Mercedes for 2026, Vowles chose his words very carefully. He said confident would be the wrong word, but then he explained something fascinating. He talked about how Mercedes is really good at thinking through problems that teams will encounter in the following year and getting ahead of the program. That's exactly what they did before 2014, and we all know how that turned out. But here's the part that really caught my attention. Vowles revealed that Williams isn't just focusing their simulator work on the current season. They're already chunking through problems for 2026. Think about that for a moment. While other teams might be desperately trying to improve their current cars, Williams is already preparing for the future. This creates an incredible opportunity for both Sainz and Williams. Right now, Williams is nowhere near the front of the grid. But if Mercedes nails the 2026 power unit like they did in 2014, suddenly Williams becomes a very attractive proposition. They'll have the same engine as the works Mercedes team, McLaren, and Alpine. But here's the key difference. Williams will likely have much less political complexity and internal pressure than those other teams. Mercedes will obviously prioritize their own team, but Williams could end up being their dark horse. Remember, customer teams have won championships before when they've had the right engine at the right time. Braun GP won both championships in 2009 with Mercedes power. Red Bull dominated with Renault engines when they were superior. The timing of Sainz's move is particularly clever when you consider the alternatives he had. He could have stayed at Ferrari, but Ferrari will be developing their own engine, and their recent track record with major regulation changes hasn't been spectacular. He could have gone to other teams, but none of them will have Mercedes power in 2026. What makes this even more intriguing is the technical challenge of the 2026 regulations. The increased electrical power output means the hybrid system becomes absolutely crucial. Mercedes has always been ahead of everyone else when it comes to hybrid technology. They were the first to really understand how to maximize the energy recovery systems, and they've maintained that advantage for years. The switch to fully sustainable biofuel for the internal combustion engine adds another layer of complexity. Engine manufacturers will need to completely rethink their approach to power delivery and efficiency. Mercedes has been investing heavily in sustainable fuel technology for years, not just in Formula One, but across all their motorsport programs. Here's what I think is really happening behind the scenes. Mercedes knows they have a window of opportunity with these new regulations to establish dominance again. They've been working on this 2026 engine for years, and if the early signs are as positive as Sainz suggests, they could be about to repeat their 2014 performance. For Williams, this partnership represents their best chance to return to competitiveness in decades. They have a driver who specifically chose them because of their engine partnership, a team principal who understands how to work with Mercedes, and they're already preparing for 2026 while other teams are still fighting current battles. The next 18 months are going to be absolutely crucial. If Mercedes delivers on these early promises, Carlos Sainz might go down as the driver who made the smartest career move in recent Formula One history, and Williams might just shock the world by becoming genuine contenders again. You're about to witness one of the most shocking legal battles in Formula One history that could change everything. Susie Wolff just dropped a bombshell update that's sending shockwaves through the paddock, and trust me, you won't believe what she's revealed about her ongoing fight against the FIA. What started as a seemingly routine investigation has exploded into something far more serious, and the implications are absolutely massive for the sport we all love. This isn't just another F1 drama. This is a story about integrity, power, and one woman's refusal to back down when her reputation was on the line. Let me take you back to December 2023, when the racing world was turned upside down. The FIA suddenly announced they were launching an investigation into potential conflicts of interest involving Susie Wolff and her husband, Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff. The motorsport governing body claimed they'd received reports from rival teams expressing concerns about the couple's relationship creating unfair advantages. But here's where things get absolutely wild. Within just 48 hours, 9 out of 10 Formula One teams issued identical statements, completely denying they had raised any complaints. Think about that for a second. Nearly every single team in the sport came together to basically tell the FIA they were wrong. That's unprecedented unity in a sport known for fierce rivalries and political maneuvering. The investigation was dropped faster than a Red Bull pit stop, but the damage to Susie Wolff's reputation was already done. Articles began questioning her integrity and suggesting improper conduct. For someone who has dedicated her career to promoting women in motorsport through the F1 Academy series, this was devastating. Now, here's where Susie Wolff showed she's made of championship-winning material. Instead of quietly accepting what happened, she decided to fight back in the most serious way possible. 3 months after the investigation was dropped, she filed a criminal complaint in French courts against the FIA. Not a civil lawsuit, not a formal complaint, a criminal complaint. That's taking things to the absolute highest level. Her reasoning was crystal clear and powerful. She stated there had been no transparency or accountability from the FIA regarding their conduct in this matter. She felt it was crucial to stand up against improper behavior and ensure people are held accountable for their actions. Her message was direct. Silence doesn't absolve anyone from responsibility. Fast forward to today, and Susie Wolff has provided a fresh update that's guaranteed to keep this story in the headlines. Speaking to the Sunday Times, she confirmed that her legal case remains an active, ongoing process. But more importantly, she revealed her mindset throughout this entire ordeal with words that should inspire anyone facing unfair treatment. She said she absolutely refused to be treated the way the FIA treated her. The investigation created numerous articles that questioned her integrity, and while she acknowledges people can have opinions about her work, she draws a hard line at attacks on her character. This isn't about criticism of her professional performance. This is about protecting her reputation from what she sees as unfounded and damaging accusations. The timing of this update is particularly interesting because it comes after another major controversy rocked the F1 world. Christian Horner, the long-serving Red Bull team principal, was dismissed from his position following his own serious allegations scandal. Horner faced accusations of inappropriate behavior from a colleague, though he consistently denied these claims and was cleared by multiple investigations. Susie Wolff's comments about the Horner situation provide fascinating insight into how these controversies affect the sport. She described it as a real shame that overshadowed the positive momentum her F1 Academy program was building. Just when women's participation in motorsport was gaining serious traction, these scandals shifted media attention away from progress and toward drama. She acknowledged that Horner had been supportive of the F1 Academy initiative, for which she remains grateful. However, she also suggested that his departure highlighted ongoing image problems within Formula One and demonstrated that significant work still needs to be done to improve the sport's reputation. What makes Susie Wolff's stance so compelling is her unwavering commitment to accountability. She's not seeking revenge or trying to destroy anyone's career. She's demanding that powerful organizations like the FIA be held to the same standards they expect from everyone else. When you wield influence over people's livelihoods and reputations, you must exercise that power responsibly. This case could set a precedent that extends far beyond Formula One. If Susie Wolff succeeds in her legal action, it could fundamentally change how governing bodies conduct investigations and handle sensitive matters. Organizations might think twice before launching inquiries without solid evidence or proper procedures. The broader implications for women in motorsport are equally significant. Susie Wolff leads the F1 Academy, which provides crucial opportunities for female drivers to develop their skills and potentially reach the highest levels of racing. Her willingness to fight for her reputation sends a powerful message that women in the sport won't tolerate unfair treatment or allow their achievements to be undermined by baseless accusations. As this legal battle continues to unfold, the entire Formula One community is watching closely. The outcome could reshape relationships between drivers, teams, and governing bodies. More importantly, it might establish new standards for how conflicts of interest investigations are conducted and ensure that people's reputations aren't damaged without proper justification. Susie Wolff's refusal to back down represents something bigger than just one person's fight for justice. It's about creating a motorsport environment where integrity matters, where accountability exists at every level, and where unfair treatment has real consequences. This story is far from over, and the final chapter could change Formula One forever. Picture this: one of the most historic races in Formula One history, a venue that hosted legends for nearly a century, suddenly vanished from the calendar. And according to Bernie Ecclestone, the man who basically built modern F1, nobody can figure out why it's still missing. Today we're diving into the mystery of the German Grand Prix and why one of motorsport's most powerful figures thinks its absence is absolutely bizarre. The German Grand Prix isn't just any race that disappeared. We're talking about a motorsport institution that first roared to life in 1926. For decades, this event was the ultimate test of driver skill and courage, especially when it called the legendary Nürburgring Nordschleife home. This wasn't some random circuit edition that came and went. This was a cornerstone of Formula One, hosting races almost every single year except during wars, pandemics, or financial disasters. But here's where things get really interesting. The last German Grand Prix happened in 2019, and since then, crickets. While F1 has expanded to 24 races per year, visiting glamorous new venues around the globe, Germany sits on the sidelines. And Bernie Ecclestone, the former F1 Supremo who turned this sport into the global phenomenon we know today, is genuinely puzzled by this situation. In a recent interview, Ecclestone didn't mince words about his confusion. He admitted he thinks about this situation often and finds it strange that nobody's making it happen. According to Bernie, virtually no one would oppose bringing the German Grand Prix back, except maybe a few people in Germany itself. That's a pretty stunning statement when you think about it. The guy who spent decades orchestrating F1's calendar thinks this particular absence makes no sense whatsoever. But then Ecclestone drops the real truth bomb that explains everything. It's just about money. If someone with the right funding stepped forward, he believes it would absolutely work. And this is where the story gets really fascinating, because it reveals how dramatically Formula One's business model has evolved. Today's F1 operates in a completely different financial universe than when the German Grand Prix was a regular fixture. We're not just talking about modest sanctioning fees anymore. We're talking about massive financial commitments that can reach into the hundreds of millions. Countries and circuits now compete with each other using enormous cash offers that would have seemed impossible just a few decades ago. Current F1 boss Stefano Domenicali has actually expressed genuine interest in bringing Germany back to the calendar. But here's the catch: he's spoiled for choice. There's apparently a waiting list of companies and even entire countries with their prime ministers and kings desperate to host a race. Portugal, Thailand, South Korea, South Africa, Rwanda, Indonesia, Argentina, MBA. They're all lining up with their checkbooks open. The competition is absolutely fierce, and many of these potential hosts come equipped with serious financial firepower. Take Saudi Arabia, for example. They can tap into their massive public investment fund to cover everything from circuit construction and maintenance to those hefty sanctioning fees that Formula One and the FIA demand. It's a level of financial backing that's extremely difficult to match. German driver Timo Glock offered some crucial insight into why Germany specifically struggles with this challenge. According to Glock, there's a complex political situation happening in Germany right now. The country's major manufacturers don't want to be involved in motorsport anymore, largely due to concerns about carbon footprints and environmental impact. Additionally, the German government has apparently withdrawn its support for Formula One races entirely. This creates a perfect storm of problems. Without investment from the country itself, and without backing from German automakers like BMW, Mercedes, or Audi, organizing a German Grand Prix becomes incredibly challenging. You need massive financial resources to even get in the conversation with modern Formula One, and Germany simply doesn't have the political or corporate will to make that investment. What makes this situation even more frustrating for fans is that Germany has such an incredible motorsport heritage. The Nürburgring Nordschleife was legendary for its difficulty and danger. Drivers who conquered that track became instant legends. The German Grand Prix produced some of the most memorable moments in F1 history, and its absence represents a significant loss of racing culture and tradition. Domenicali has suggested that earning money through sanctioning fees would be secondary to reviving this beloved event, but actions speak louder than words. The reality is that Formula One operates as a business first, and sentiment rarely trumps financial considerations. If someone seriously wanted to bring back the German Grand Prix, they'd need to present a compelling business case backed by substantial funding. The clock is also ticking on this opportunity. As Domenicali pointed out, time is running out, with so many other venues competing for limited calendar spots. Formula One can only reasonably host so many races per year before driver fatigue and logistical challenges become overwhelming. Every new venue that gets added makes it harder for traditional races to return. Bernie Ecclestone's bewilderment about this situation really highlights how much Formula One has changed during his absence from leadership. During his era, historic venues like Germany carried weight beyond pure financial considerations. There was value placed on tradition, racing heritage, and the sport's connection to its roots. Modern F1 operates with different priorities, focusing heavily on global expansion and maximizing revenue streams. So here we are in 2025, with one of motorsport's most influential figures scratching his head about why the German Grand Prix remains missing in action. Ecclestone believes it should happen, Domenicali claims to want it, and fans certainly miss it. Yet the race remains absent, held hostage by financial realities and political complications that seem almost impossible to resolve. The German Grand Prix's absence perfectly captures the tension between Formula One's glorious past and its commercially driven present. Until someone steps forward with serious funding and political support, this motorsport mystery will likely continue puzzling even the sport's most knowledgeable insiders. Picture this. You're a Formula One fan, ready to drop hundreds of dollars on race weekend tickets. And then you hear, there's going to be a sprint race. Does that extra racing action make you more likely to buy those tickets? Well, according to the man who runs one of America's biggest Formula One venues, the answer might surprise you. I'm talking about Bobby Epstein, the boss of Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, and he just dropped some fascinating insights about Formula One's sprint race format that challenges everything we think we know about what drives ticket sales in motorsport. Now, before we dive deep into this, let me set the stage. Sprint races were introduced to Formula One in 2021 as a way to spice up race weekends. Instead of just having practice sessions on Friday and Saturday leading up to Sunday's main race, sprint weekends feature a shorter Saturday race that determines grid positions for the main event. It sounds exciting, right? More racing should equal more ticket sales, at least in theory. But here's where it gets interesting. Epstein has been watching the numbers closely since Austin first hosted a sprint race in 2023, and his findings are eye-opening. He's discovered that while sprint races definitely add value to the fan experience, they're not actually moving the needle when it comes to convincing people to buy tickets in the first place. Think about it from a business perspective. You're running a massive racing venue, and Formula One introduces this new format that's supposed to generate more excitement and presumably more revenue. You'd expect to see a surge in ticket demand, right? But that's not what's happening at Circuit of the Americas. Epstein puts it perfectly when he explains that sprint races give fans more bang for their buck without necessarily creating that initial purchasing impulse. It's like getting extra toppings on your pizza for free. It's great value once you've decided to order, but those extra toppings aren't what made you pick up the phone to place the order in the first place. This revelation becomes even more intriguing when you consider Formula One's broader strategy. The sports CEO has been hinting at expanding sprint weekends beyond the current 6 races per season. If sprint races aren't driving ticket sales at established venues like Austin, it raises questions about whether this expansion strategy is based on the right metrics. What's particularly fascinating is how Epstein describes the evolution of fan reception to sprint races. Initially, fans weren't immediately sold on the format. It wasn't seen as this must-have addition that would make or break their weekend plans. But gradually, as fans experienced sprint weekends, they began appreciating the extra content and entertainment value. This gradual warming up to the format reveals something important about how motorsport fans make their purchasing decisions. They're not necessarily swayed by format changes announced months in advance. Instead, they're making decisions based on their overall desire to attend a Grand Prix, and then they appreciate any additional value once they're there. The data that Epstein mentions analyzing is crucial here. He's looking at attendance patterns across Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to see if sprint races are changing how fans engage with the weekend. Are more people staying for Saturday's action? Are they arriving earlier? These behavioral changes matter even if they're not translating directly into increased ticket sales. But here's where the story gets really interesting. While sprint races might not be driving ticket sales, Austin is taking a completely different approach to growing their business. Instead of relying solely on format changes from Formula One, they're building an entire entertainment ecosystem around their racing venue. Circuit of the Americas is developing into something unprecedented in American motorsport. They're constructing a hotel right on the property, which Epstein expects will bring up to 1 million additional visitors annually. But the real game changer is their upcoming amusement park called Cotaland, featuring a roller coaster called Circuit Breaker. Now this is where business strategy meets pure genius. While sprint races might not convince someone to buy a Grand Prix ticket, imagine being a family visiting Austin for vacation, staying at the Circuit Hotel, and spending time at the amusement park. Suddenly, you're exposed to this incredible racing facility. You can see the track, maybe take a tour, and perhaps that plants the seed for future Formula One attendance. The amusement park is strategically positioned between turns 19 and 20, with its main restaurant overlooking the actual race circuit. Even when there's no race happening, visitors can see this impressive track and start to understand what Formula One is all about. For many Americans who are only familiar with NASCAR's oval tracks, seeing a proper Grand Prix circuit can be a revelation. Epstein's vision extends beyond just the amusement park. He's planning what he calls the world's greatest ride, which would be the opportunity to take a hot lap around the actual Formula One circuit. Imagine the thrill of experiencing those same corners that Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen navigate at incredible speeds. This diversification strategy addresses a fundamental challenge in motorsport venue management. Race weekends generate intense activity and revenue, but then the facility sits relatively quiet for most of the year. By creating year-round attractions, Circuit of the Americas is solving the sustainability puzzle that many racing venues struggle with. The impact of this approach on Formula One's growth in America cannot be overstated. When families visit these attractions and get exposed to the sport in a low-pressure, entertaining environment, they're much more likely to become future fans and ticket buyers than they would be through traditional marketing or format changes. What makes this even more compelling is how it contrasts with Formula One's approach in other markets. While the sport is adding more sprint races and tweaking formats, Circuit of the Americas is focusing on creating touchpoints with potential fans throughout the entire year. The lesson here extends far beyond motorsport. It's about understanding what actually drives customer behavior versus what we think should drive customer behavior. Sprint races seem like they should boost ticket sales, but the reality is more nuanced. They add value for existing customers without necessarily creating new ones. So the next time you hear about Formula One adding more sprint races, remember Bobby Epstein's insights. The future of motorsport venues might not be about format changes from the sanctioning body, but about creating comprehensive entertainment destinations that introduce the sport to new audiences in unexpected ways.